Hello, 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 everybody. We are live. It is going down. One of the biggest wars that has ever taken place on the Chinese server. And we have got it for you here today. Kingdom 1061 and 1041 are two very, very successful kingdoms. 41 has what looks like a double moon. And Kingdom 1016 has 6 stars and went very, very deep in the Grand Prix. And they are kicking off a pass opening here on the Chinese server. These two kingdoms are major rivals, and we are very excited to be able to spectate what's going to happen here on this coverage of a major war on the Chinese server. Both teams got their passes very quickly. And are all streaming out now. Looks like we've got a couple of fort drops. In the top left and the bottom right, we have the camera for 16 and we have the camera for 41. And these two kingdoms are going head to head here in this zone. There's very big coverage of this in China. You can see a lot of Chinese chat running across the screen. They have a broadcast team, like an in-studio broadcast team that did a pregame show for this. And you can see the numbers are quite significant, even for the other kingdoms in this KVK, 21 and 30, and then up here we've got Kingdom 8 and Kingdom 133. Really big numbers in these opening balls. And look at this here on the top. Kingdom 16 had a couple of random teleporters here. And they are just walking right in to the 41 murder ball here. So we are going to bring you the first few hours of action of this KVK to see what our counterparts on the Chinese server are all about when it comes to pass openings, especially in a major war like this one. These are actually considered the two top kingdoms on the Chinese server, Kingdom 16 and Kingdom 41. So it actually looks like 16 is going up against 21 YL here in the upper right. We've got the 21 YL ball here fighting against GY 16. And then it looks like on the right, we've got 41 going up against 8 and 133. So this is going to set the tone for this whole KVK. As much as this is a 1v1 matchup against the top two kingdoms on the Chinese server, the other kingdoms in this are going to be very, very important factors. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes when two top kingdoms fight each other, it's those third parties, those other kingdoms in the KVK that will oftentimes decide the winner. The top two kingdoms, one might be slightly better than the other, but not enough to make a difference in the war. But some of those supporting kingdoms and some of those supporting camps, there can be a big differential in effectiveness, differential in skill, and differential in effort and desire to win. And it can sometimes be those secondary kingdoms that make the ultimate difference. We can see 21YL here in the bottom left had a very, very big ball. And they are fighting. We can see on the top left, we can see the two balls fighting. Zoomed in a little bit more on 21YL on the bottom left. Pretty cool camera work here. 4 cameras of these 2 zone openings. And the chat's going wild. A lot of 21YL support here in the chat at this moment. Liking what they see. The chat seems to like what they see from this opening 21YL murder ball here on the left side. They definitely seem to have the numbers advantage, and we can see on the top left that the 21YL ball is very tight. The GY16 ball is a little bit, you know, spread out. They're surrounding 21YL, which is good for the AoE, but the tighter ball can sort of focus in one direction and clear that direction out first. But a really big fight here early on, even with all the random teleports that are likely going to be happening. Really good numbers from both of these camps here. Let me give you a quick... let me tell you about the power of these kingdoms real quick. 41 KT, which we see their camera on the bottom right. 21 KT, again, they have, I believe, 10 KVK victories. 21 KT has 21.6 billion power in their main alliance. GY16, in the top left, they have, wow, they have 25 billion power in their main alliance. That's about twice this, well, it's twice the power of a kingdom in the international server. I don't know that I can tell you exactly how much power a kingdom like 960 has, or an alliance like 60 GT has at the moment, but I think they probably have like 17 or 18 billion power. Check me on that in the chat if I'm slightly off, but yeah, really, really, really high power on some of these teams here. And this is the King of All Britain map. This is the new map in ROK. I actually played this map yesterday. We're fighting in this. We're fighting in these zones right now, actually. Let's see if I can figure out which team is. I'm going to assume that. Well, we're gonna have to figure this out. Whether they're fighting north to south or east to west. It kind of looks like it's north to south. I'm going to guess that the left side is the left zone and that the right side is the right zone. I'm going to have to look as they zoom around to figure that out, because the zones are not the same. They're not the same. Yeah, so the right side is going to be... Actually, maybe they're going left to right. Looks like they're actually fighting left to right here, so I'm not super familiar with these two zones. We did not fight in these zones yesterday. One of the things I noticed about King of All Britain is that it's a big zone, but because of where the passes are, you can get to that center holy site pretty quickly. And so forts that are dropped at that center holy site, which is actually a very good holy site, it gives 3% all damage. Your flag line can get to that center holy site in 2 hours and destroy any forts that the enemy has placed. Now, you could flag quickly and sort of block your own forts and protect your own forts. That's that's always one of the advantages of flagging very quickly. But fort drops in these zones, like center fort drops in these zones, are not safe from early flagging. We were actually able to destroy our enemies dropped 3 forts at the center holy site. We were able to destroy all 3 of those forts, and we had a bunch of time to spare, actually. But overall, these are big zones. The zone 5s for the King of Britain map are very big zones, for sure. And there is an artifact in this KVK that allows you to use Ragnar Prime in more ways. I think it sort of boosts him as a secondary. And I did see quite a bit of Ragnar Prime on the field yesterday. And the word on the street, this is straight from the latest fighting in Rise of Kingdoms. The word on the street is that Ragnar Prime is very, very good. Algebra, one of the best players in my alliance. He actually said that Ragnar Prime is better than Scipio Prime. As far as an open field commander, Ragnar Prime stronger than Scipio Prime. Now, really what you want to do is you want to pair those 2 commanders together. You want to pair Scipio Prime as the primary and make Ragnar the secondary. We can see on the top left that GY16 is flooding in quite hard here against 2130. And they are fighting left to right here. GY16 is on the top. 41KT is on the bottom. So 41KT is pushing to the right against Kingdom 8 and Kingdom 133. GY16 is pushing left and slightly down against 21YL. And then both sides have a shared zone 5 with their allies that they will be able to use. Now, another thing I want to point out about this, and you can see this a little bit on the top left here as they're getting introduced to the holy site, there are these burrs in this zone, and these burrs are extremely important. And listen, it's not the mechanic might need a little bit of revising, but at the moment, whichever team sends marches to one of those burrs first, they take over the burr for about 3 days. And so they're going to get some stratagem points by taking that burr, and any one of their players who visits the burr, they will get some stratagem points. And you need stratagem points to actually buy stratagems. Yesterday, I had 1 stratagem on this map because I forgot to enter this sort of Sunset Canyon-like event called the Home Gang, where you get some stratagem points. And then the other way to get points, other than the Sunset Canyon event, is visiting these burrs. You have to control enough of the zone to take the burr, and then you can just sort of walk in and get a few stratagem points that way as well. But I think the best thing about the zones here, about this map, well, there's a couple of nice things. The stratagems are cool. They're hard to get, but the stratagems are cool. And then the other thing is that the zone 5s are pretty big. They're big zones for sure. And you can do plenty of fighting. Not all that many choke points. You can definitely flank the enemy. And we are seeing some fort drops. So on the bottom left, you can see a lot of fort drops from both teams. That's actually, I think, maybe the 4130 zone here on the bottom left. But we do see some fort drops here. 41KT has a couple of forts dropped here. And they are being harassed a bit by 8 and 133, trying to block reinforcements getting into these forts. And then they've got some blocking forts trying to block the progress of 8 and 133 here. We're looking at the top left here. They're using forts to block the flag builds of 8 and 133. And they're hoping to slow those flag builds down enough for them to get their forts up in, you know, in a safe amount of time. You can see how much they're restricting the flag builds here by placing those forts. Now, you know, I would imagine that alliance credits are not too much of an issue here for 41 KT being either the first or second strongest kingdom on the Chinese server. But, you know, what is impressive about kingdoms that can do this sort of fort blocking is that you have to spread out the credit generation to some extent. You have to generate credits in all of these farm alliances. Obviously, you can donate your gold credits to assist in that, but, you know, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get, you know, 20, 30 million credits in an alliance. It's just sort of something you have to do in the off season. And, you know, for those who are on this stream here, Xander, good to have you here. Everybody who's here, I will give you a bit of a pro tip here about generating alliance credits. I appreciate everybody tuning in for this Chinese server footage. One good way to generate alliance credits in a farm alliance is what you can do is you can start an alliance granary, which is very cheap to build. You start an alliance granary, you set it to 1 troop max, and that is essentially a more cost-efficient way of generating credits than building flags. Now, you could do a fort as well. You can do a slow build fort over the course of a couple weeks, but if you don't want to spend that many credits, you can spend 150k credits. You can start an alliance granary, make it a 1 troop granary, and you can have people build credits that way. So just a little free-to-play kingdom building tip as we watch some very, very big Chinese kingdoms battle it out. Imprison here on the right, 21YL imprisoned, and it looks like GY16 are circling like a bunch of vultures here. You wonder what they have planned with this city, this boat, this imprisoned boat. That's clearly, this city on the right here is clearly close to GY16. They have their ball here. They have a couple of random teleports. So, same as it ever was here, with a player random teleporting very early on and finding themselves in a bit of trouble. 12 billion kill points on this city from 21YL. I mean, when you have this many people surrounding your city, you do get nervous. But this player can... You know, you can pretty much always defend your city effectively if you do it very, very well. If you have some teammates who are communicating to you when to fast heal. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and it is not foolproof. But if you play it right, you can generally... well, you can get good trades. You can't necessarily defend your city. I mean, if a kingdom wants it badly enough, they will zero you. They will take you out of commission for the whole KVK. Let's see what's going to happen here. I mean, boy, 61... GY16 is feeling themselves here. Look at the emojis. The emojis are absolutely flying against this player. I think they had about 100 plus million power. It looked to me like they were a little over 100 million. Definitely a fighter. About 13 billion KP on this player. And on the left, we see flag lines getting built out. players in blue random TPing. Night Fury saying that this city's about to get ganged up on. I mean, they're like heavily... they're so focused on this city, right? Like, aren't there other things to do, boys? Like, don't you have a zone to take over? But they are all about this city here. You would imagine some of these players know each other quite well. 21YL and GY16, they played in the Grand Prix together. They both went quite far in the Grand Prix, so a lot of these players are probably quite familiar with each other. They have probably practiced a fair bit of Arc against one another. On the left, we see 41KT flagging out. In red, their opponents are flagging out. Their opponents have gotten past the original fort blocking. So 8 and 133, they are gradually flagging out. Remains to be seen if they will get to the forts in the middle in time. On the right side here, we are waiting on this rally on this 21YL city, imprisoned. Now, one thing to note here is that there aren't a lot of kingdoms in this KVK. These are very, very big kingdoms who are fighting here. We only have 6 kingdoms in this All-Britain KVK. So, not a lot of imprisons. Not a lot of imprisons are available here. Rally coming in. Let's see what they chose for the rally. Gorgo on the wall. Asher... Asher Mehmed Rally here. Very interesting. Asher Mehmed Rally. Already seeing the meta differences. With the Mehmed secondary on this city rally, the city's holding up pretty well here. You know, they're going to have to... Well, they can keep this thing reigned. They can keep this rally reigned. But, you know, the trade is not going to be... The trade's not looking great here. Very big player. Hard to get a good trade against a player like this. You wonder how much... You wonder how much GY16 is really going to accomplish here. They've got literally 80 to 100 marches standing around watching this. There's a lot more to do in this zone. I mean, listen, maybe they just know they're on TV. And so I'm not going to criticize it too much because we appreciate this content. But all in all, this Gorgo has baited out and imprisoned. They've baited out 80 to 100 marches, twiddling their thumbs. And they're also getting... Oh, so this player's 170 million power. And I think I looked at their KP wrong as well. Up over 30 billion KP. So this player is getting a very good trade here. As on the left, we do watch players battling out on this key choke point on the bridge. The Gorgo getting a little bit low. They are keeping the rally full. I mean, one of the nice things about having 100 or so people watching this is that you have plenty of reigns. You have plenty of reigns here. Big, big damage from both sides here. Does look like the Gorgo's going to go down first. Yeah, 32 billion KP on this player. You'd love to take this player out of commission, but at, you know, 170 million power, you're just not going to have enough time. You don't have enough imprisons in this KVK to get this player down to any sort of painful level, right? All you're doing is softening this player up. Maybe a little bit you're softening them up. They cannot heal during this rally. So maybe they've filled up his hospital at this point. Hard to say. But really, nobody swarmed it. They just rallied. And they did get the burn. 8 million power drop. A lot of that will get healed back. So It looks like it's TH16 over here. And obviously they're a very, very big kingdom, and so plenty of their players can be elsewhere on the map flagging and stuff. The other reason why this is like okay to do, the other reason why it's okay to like focus on rallying a player is that the first couple hours of a zone are not... They're important, but they're important in ways that people don't quite think about. The most important thing in the first 2 hours of a zone is building. You have to get your forts down quickly, you have to fill up your forts very quickly, and you have to have a very good flag building team to... Let's see if we're going to get a report here. Looks like the camera people are trying to get the report here. But, you know, ultimately you have to get it from a rally, one of the people in the rally, or you have to get it from the city itself. But yeah, you know, at the end of the day, you need about... Well, you need anywhere from 10 to 20 people to build flags quickly. The more players you have, the more small marches you can put in a flag, and then that will allow you to build a little bit faster. You need players to also fill up all your forts, but as far as open field fighting, it only matters in a situation like we have on the left, where they're actually blocking a choke point, right? They're actually blocking a choke point. They could potentially slow down some flag builds here if they can hold this choke. There's the rally. On the left, we have the rally report from that city. Actually, wow. 1 million dead. 1 million dead troops on that Gorgo Hera. They kept the rally up long enough that this player actually took 1 million dead there. So a very good trade for the rally. Power-wise, that rally got a 2-to-1 trade against a Gorgo Hera with 170 million power. That is one nasty Asher Mechmed. Double stratagems on both. So there's the infantry stats on the right. On the top right, we have the infantry stats 152, 146, and 100. So 152 attack, 146 defense, and I think it was like 102 health. Double the KP as well for a rally. Wow, that is a great rally right there. I wish I could tell you what the stratagems are. I'm not... You know what? It looks like they've got the artifact on the Mechmed, and so the Mechmed's stats went to... Well, I don't... I think that's the artifact. Anyway, the artifact makes no difference for Mechmed anyway. It just gives you the boost. They have the artifact on because it gives you 3.5% archer attack. So, you know... Same as it ever was. Everybody's min-maxing, especially rally leaders. Rally leaders are, I think, the best at min-maxing. Last night we were rallying some flags, and we were like, start the rally, start the rally, start the rally, and our rally lead algebra was like, wait, I'm trying to think about what I want to rally with. And that's always the best, right? The best is when the rally leader likes to theorycraft themselves. They sort of take on the responsibility to pick the correct rally combo, pick the correct gear, right talents, the right stratagems. I mean, on this map, the Britain map, the new Britain map, you have a lot of decisions to make as far as what stratagems to use. Although early in the map, in this first zone, you are a bit restricted because you have to buy all the stratagems. On the Sword of Stratagems map, you just get all the stratagems for free. You can pick any stratagem at any time. You're only restricted by the cost and the time to switch from one set of stratagems to another. On this map, on the Britain map, there is a time limit to switch. I don't think there's a cost to switch. I'm not sure about that. I don't think there's a cost to switch. But the point is that you have to buy all the stratagems. And this early on in a zone, nobody has that many stratagems. We even saw for those very big whales, whales in that city rally, you can equip up to 6 stratagems. But in this case, those 2 big whales only could afford to buy 2 stratagems. And yeah, it looked like neither of them had the artifact. The artifact is a green stratagem. They had purple and red stratagems. So yeah, you can see that they, they're restricted just like the rest of us as far as early stratagem point generation on this Britain map. So right now we've got 41 KT looking pretty strong with their opening on the bottom zone. And on the right, we are getting a bit of a scan of the zone on the top. Actually, it looks like both cameras are looking at the same zone at the moment. You can see that Kingdom 41 has placed a lot of forts in the center of this map. A few enemy forts here as well. Not too many. And, maybe they can get it up in time. You can see that even though we're pretty early in this zone, we're only 30 minutes into this zone, but we can see that the flags are getting very close. The flag lines are getting close to these center forts for both sides, actually. And looks like a pretty big ball here from 8 and 133. They have managed to cross this river, this very large river in one of these zones. I will say this map is not symmetrical, right? Because as much as we had a little bit of water in the zone we fought in yesterday, it was not significant. I really don't think that water played any role in the zone we fought in yesterday. It doesn't look like it plays a huge role here either. I mean, there's the water near the pass, but that's not that's not that big of a deal. It's the stuff in the center of the zone that really matters. When you have a body of water in the center of the zone, that's when it can be very, very impactful. My impression of this map was that it's pretty wide open. There really wasn't... There just weren't even very many choke points, honestly. Our enemies were really not able to get up any forts that blocked us in any sort of way. Now, you can fort up near the holy sites, and then it does become daunting to take a fort down. Because, first of all, you don't have max rally capacity at this point in the zone. The forts are going to be 3 million troop capacity. Max rally capacity at this point is going to be about 2.6 million. That's one reason that it's tough to take down a fort. The other reason is we do have a new garrison commander in the game, CY. The new Archer garrison is very, very strong. Very, very strong garrison. I think one could definitely argue that it is stronger than Gorgo because it's better against the Swarm. The thing about CY is CY has that heal. And against a Swarm, healing is incredibly good. It's so, so good because you think you're getting a garrison down, but the heal keeps that garrison healthier, and it gives the team time to throw reinforcements in you cannot burst down a healing garrison anywhere near as fast as you can burst down a non-healing garrison. And that makes CY really, really nasty against Swarm. We had some great trades when the enemy decided to swarm a CY yesterday. This is an artifact KVK, so you can do things like CY Gorgo or CY Attila. And, you know, once you get into a situation like that, look, it's very hard to swarm those garrisons. I mean, you can do it, but it becomes very painful. And I think that does kind of change the game a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how these Chinese kingdoms do things once these forts get touched, once the flag lines get touched. Because I will say also, though, that rallies are pretty strong, right? Like, you know, Scipio Aemilianus is a very good rally. Commanders like Asher and Tariq, they do very well against normal damage, right? The kind of normal damage that Gorgo does. I can't remember if CY does normal damage or not. Someone please check me on that. I don't have my game open at the moment. But, you know, Tariq and Asher, they really do debuff normal damage a lot. And so what you can do at this point is maybe instead of swarming every garrison, you can go back to old-fashioned rallying of garrisons and getting good trades that way. The issue is that you need a tanky enough rally to absorb the swarming of the enemy. So it's a very anti-swarm type of game at the moment, but I think the balance that's happening that's pretty good is that these anti-swarm commanders, they don't do a lot of they don't do good one-on-one trading, right? They're not great at one-on-one trading because they're so anti-swarm. I think that's why Scipio Aemilianus is really quite good as a rally lead, is because Scipio Aemilianus is tanky but also trades very well in a one-on-one situation. And I think Asher is very good. We saw Asher on that city rally against the Gorgo. Asher is very good because it does a lot against normal attack damage. So open field fighting here on both sides. It looks like 41KT's enemies do have a pretty good foothold here. I mean, listen, it's hard to assess these balls early on, but 41KT's enemies are pushing them back right now. In the center of this zone, where all these forts are, the blue ball on the right is pushing back 41KT. And they're reaching the forts, right? Like, we can see these red flags are reaching some of these 41KT forts already. Already they're reaching these forts. You know, no one has played this zone before, and look at how quickly the left side of this flag line from the red camp, that's going to be the water camp. We'll call them water camp because yeah. Look at how quickly water camp has gotten to these 41KT forts. They have gotten here very, very quickly. And we do have an imprison here. So this is getting spicy here in the bottom zone. 41KT, they have 10 KVK wins. They are absolutely one of the most decorated kingdoms in the game, right? So, because, I mean, not only do they have 10 wins, but they're, like, one of the biggest kingdoms on the Chinese server. So this would sort of be like if, you know, GT or 1093, it would be like if they had 10 stars, which I'm pretty sure they don't. I know 1093 doesn't. I don't think GT is up to 10 stars yet. Although both of those kingdoms did just win their KVKs. But 41KT did a very aggressive drop here. Very aggressive drop. You know, yeah, this zone is big, but it's wide. It's wide, and so the distance to the center is pretty small. And so I think that 41KT must have just assessed that they are going to be able to hold these forts. I think one issue is that the water camp has a lot of random teleports. I mean, on the left here, we are seeing a fight near one of these forts, and look at all of the random teleports from water camp here. On the screen we're watching now, there's actually more water camp random teleports than there are earth camp teleports. .41KT just not really... We're not seeing the 41KT ball here. I'm sure they're just very spread out. But if they're not mustering... I mean, they're just going to have to muster a defense very soon here. Skillful Craftsman still has probably about 15-20 minutes on it. And the water camp flags are very close to touching some of these forts. This 41GX fort, that's the next one they're eyeing. I believe they already destroyed one fort. And they just need a couple more flags to reach this next one. But it could be that these are all blocking forts, right? These might be forts that they're filled up, that are just sort of blocking the rest of the advance. We do see that 41KT is still building out quite well, and they do have some forts sort of to the south. On the right side here, we see a couple of 41KT forts. Actually, those are actually water camp forts, but those will get reached also. So the more I look at this zone, the more it looks to me like all these forts are going down. It's hard to imagine any important fort getting placed here unless a team can really hold the field and really dominate the actual fighting. It doesn't look like build speed is going to save any of these forts at this point. And you can see that there's a big, big coverage here of this pass opening in China. We are watching a Chinese feed of footage of this KVK. This was a very big start of a war on the Chinese server. Kingdom 16 against Kingdom 41. They've got the in-studio hosts commentating on this thing. I do think that Rise of Kingdom Wars are appropriate for this sort of coverage. We do see this sort of long form esports type coverage in other games. For example, in World of Warcraft, you see broadcast coverage of world first raiding. When a new patch is released, you'll see live streams that essentially go for 3 or 4 days where it shows the top teams raiding these new bosses, and then you have a whole commentary crew who are commentating as they watch. They'll sort of cycle hosts in and out because these things literally just go 24/7. That's very popular coverage in World of Warcraft. That's actually the most popular coverage in World of Warcraft. It's not the 3 versus 3 tournaments. It's not the sort of direct esports type of coverage. It's actually that long form rating, the rating competitions in Warcraft that get the most viewers. I think with Rise of Kingdoms, we're somewhere in the middle where Ark of Osiris is a very good game mode. And, you know, there's some real value to streaming that, and that is the most popular sort of coverage at the moment, at least here on the international server. But I do think covering KVKs is, you know, obviously very good content as well. Individual content creators like myself, I do tend to get my best views when I'm spectating other people's KVKs and, you know, talking about them for 2 or 3 hours at a time. And what you as viewers can do, you can watch one person stream in the morning, watch another person stream later on that day, pick up a different stream on day 2, and you can sort of watch the whole story of a KVK if you want to by watching various streamers. And, you know, that is like really good Rise of Kingdoms content, in my opinion. It does take a bit of it takes a bit of effort to watch long enough to sort of follow the whole story. But I think there's something here that as a community we can think about, like, how do we want to cover these very big wars? I think ultimately, like, the decentralized way that we have done it so far is very good. You know, streamers choose when they want to stream, and they just do the content on their own channel like I'm doing now. But I do appreciate the opportunity that Lilith has provided me to cast this stream, this opening of the Chinese server. Obviously, they have a very big production going on in China for this. I think that this is part of Rise of Kingdoms' future, is highlighting these wars, because this is... this is what the game is all about. These wars are what the game is all about for sure. We do now see that Kingdom 41 has formed up a pretty significant ball here. They're fighting it out at one of their forts that are under construction. They're just trying to get a foothold here. It looks like a new fort was put up. This 08cc fort was put up here. This will be a blocking fort as well. Water now on the offensive in a lot of ways. Water is now putting up blocking forts to try and slow down 41 KT, because they see a lot of juicy targets and they want to reach those targets before 41 KT is able to get some flags protect their own forts. That's really the name of the game here, is you need to get flags built fast enough so that you can wrap them around your forts and then protect those forts. Because obviously once a flag is built, flag can be built very quickly. A flag gets built and then it takes about an hour to destroy that flag. Even if you leave it undefended, it still takes an hour to burn down the flag. That hour gives you enough time to get some of these forts up. And so that is now the name of the game here. 41 KT just trying to get a few forts built on the south side of the zone. I don't know that those forts are necessarily all that important. I mean, I do think there might be some passes over there. Actually, I'm not even sure that there are passes over there, but if 41 KT can get any of these forts up, I don't think they're going to be incredibly important. They're not going to be in the center of the zone. That's just my prediction at this point. But, you know, obviously if they, like, have the stronger army and all of their army arrives and gathers up at this area, they can potentially hold some of their forts. I mean, if you can hold the field, then of course you can hold your forts. But we'll see what happens. I think there's going to be about an hour... Yeah, about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes to go before these forts get up. And we're going to have a lot of open field fighting in the meantime. Do be sure to throw a like on this stream if you're enjoying this content. Really appreciate everyone hanging out. And we do see on the left, we see a Ragnar Alex in the field, Ragnar primary. So Ragnar can also get used as a primary. Infantry's in a pretty good place right now, actually. I mean, I could argue that there are 3 very good infantry marches. I guess the optimal marches would be... If you wanted to go 3 infantry, I think the optimal marches would be Scipio Ragnar, Lucci Alex, and then Gorgo Wallace or Wallace Gorgo. Now, I think Wallace Gorgo is like a little bit, like not quite as good, so 3 is not amazing. But if you did like 2 infantry marches with, you know, Scipio Ragnar and Wallace Lucci or Lucci Alex, you'd be in really good shape with those 2 infantry marches. Like really, really good shape. And I would say we are seeing quite a bit of infantry out here. I do see an XY Justinian in the field. I always like to see that because that's one of the marches that I rock. I'm a little bit behind the times here. Doesn't look like there's a lot of secondary archer marches, right? We're not seeing too many Asher primaries. Not seeing many Shajar primaries. It feels a bit like right now the meta is going to be 2-2-1, 2 infantry, 2 cavalry, and 1 archer. It starts to get a little more complicated when you go to 6 marches, which some of these players undoubtedly have 6 marches. But, you know, you can certainly go 3 cavalry, especially in an artifact KVK. I think you can go 3 cavalry. Nevsky Joan and Hua William being the sort of main 2, but then you can do something with an XY primary or a Justinian primary with either Belisarius Prime or a artifact commander like an Asher or like a Boudica. You know, some of these strong archer commanders that aren't good enough to use as a total archer march. You can pair that Asher, you can pair that Boudica with an XY, with a Justinian, or you know, maybe with like a Guan or something like that, and have a 3rd cavalry march or a 3rd infantry march. It does look like Watercamp is continuing to push back 41 AT here in the bottom zone. This zone is starting to look real spicy, real spicy, with the 10-time KVK winners here. 41 KT, they're on the left side of the zone. They're in blue on the left side map. The cameras are kind of, they're easy to track here, actually. Like, the left side is watching from the view of the team that's on the left. The right side is watching the view of the team that is on the right. Water camp on the right, Earth camp on the left. And for now, the 2 kingdoms from Water Camp do seem to have a numbers advantage in the field at the start. It is worth noting it is 1 kingdom against 2. So Watercamp does have twice as many kingdoms here. They can potentially bring twice as many players. I do think that as zones go on and as wars go on, you do see the whale kingdoms get more of an advantage, right? Because they simply run out of resources slower, run out of speed up slower than the, you know, the numbers team. In a battle of quantity versus quality, when a zone opens, it's oftentimes the quantity that has a bit of an advantage because like everybody's online. But then over time, quality gradually tips the scales in their favor, or at least balances the scales out, because their quality players are a little bit more dedicated. They're able to put in more hours. They've got more speed ups. They've got more resources. But, you know, it's very early days here. Very early days in this war. Jordan, I am watching a war on the Chinese server. This is a Chinese pass opening on the King of Britain map. These are the two biggest kingdoms on the Chinese server. They are not fighting each other directly today. They are fighting each other's allies in this Zone 5, but the centerpiece of this war is going to be Kingdom 16 against Kingdom 41, and they are the two biggest kingdoms, or they are regarded as the two most powerful kingdoms in the Chinese server. And they have never fought. They have been rivals for years. They've been rivals for years, and they have never fought before this. And to quote my source, the beef is very deep and complicated. No need to go for any details. So that is all we know, but you know, you do get to settle things on the field in Rise of Kingdoms. That is one of the things that has made this game compelling to people for a long time, is that, you know, people can talk all they want. Diplomacy does play a role. Recruiting does play a role, and, you know, words are the currency for diplomacy and for recruiting. But the currency for the actual war, the currency for the actual fighting that we are seeing now, is that you have to take and hold territory. If you are a group that can take and hold territory, then it doesn't matter what you say, and it doesn't matter what anyone says about you, because you are able to make an impact on the map, and therefore people have to deal with you. They have to deal with you. They cannot talk their way through you. They cannot talk their way past you. They have to deal with you if you actually fight. And so you can always defy expectations in a Rise of Kingdoms war. You can be the underdog and not care one bit that you're the underdog, and just go out there and be the stronger team over time. And you can also, you know, even if you're outmatched in a KBK, even if the diplomacy has been pitted against you, you can still play very well and, you know, essentially just sort of prove your strength even if you lose. And then in many cases, your good players will stay, new strong players will migrate to you, and, you know, your enemies can potentially mischaracterize what happened in a war. But for the people who were there, the people who fought and cared about it a lot, they have a pretty good grasp of reality. And at the end of the day, power is power. And early on in this zone, at least, we have seen Water Camp defy expectations and beat 41 KT in the field early on. We're watching now from Kingdom 41's point of view. Skill effects flying all over the map here. Players being focused fire down to some extent. You don't see too many low health marches in a big fight like this, where it's very hard to target, rather hard to control your marches. One of the best things to do is just pick a target and hold on for dear life. Once that target dies, you do auto retreat, and so you kind of are naturally brought back into position. The other thing you can do is, as the camera person is doing now, you can zoom out, go into dot mode, get a nice bit of control, and just right-click one target after another, and keep yourself close to your teammates, not overextended. Looks like a fort just went down. Looks like a fort was just destroyed there. Another Kingdom 41 fort being destroyed. Now, you see that the red flag lines are getting pretty close to some of their own forts. I don't think they're going to be able to wrap around, though. And look at this. We're going to have first contact here. Yeah, these interesting zones here are going to lead to very fast first contact. Very, very fast first contact here. Just over an hour. Yeah, an hour into this zone, we're going to have first contact at these flags. And we will see what the rally of choice and the garrison of choice is for these top Chinese kingdoms. We've already seen a bit of a meta shifting city rally. We saw the Ashur Mechmed city rally. It went up against a Gorgo Hera garrison. The garrison had 170 million power, but that Ashur Mechmed rally with the extra troop capacity of that Mechmed, the Ashur Mechmed got a 2-to-1 trade against a well-garrisoned 170 million power city. That was pretty sick. That was a pretty sick report. Now, obviously, they were able to keep the rally full, and that's probably what made the difference in that report, but you just don't see that kind of a trade against a 170 million power city. Hardly ever. I honestly have never seen a trade that good against a 170 million power city where the player is online and has a meta garrison. You wonder whether a Hera YSS would have done better. Sort of a mixed troop garrison with leadership gear. You wonder how that trade would have gone. Rather than sort of the infantry-focused city defense of Gorgo. Now, you see that at this point, 41 KT, they have very close teleport space. They have flagged to this point of conflict, and they do have a lot of cities very close. Even a bunch of random teleports here. But the flag line for Water Camp is also right here. And it looks like this is probably going to be a spot where we see a lot of fighting in between these two mountain ranges. It looks like Water Camp is really racing to block some of their own forts. They're trying to get some of their forts blocked. Like I said earlier, these forts are not that important. Like, they don't connect any passes. This is literally the bottom of the map. But it's nice to get some forts up here for sure. Because, you can have some flags there, and it's just like a defensible position. But you can see that both teams have the ability to cut each other off also on sort of the top part of this zone. And it's going to be a fight where basically both teams are going to have to defend a lot of different garrisons. We fought on this map yesterday, and I mean, there were times where we had like 8 to 10 garrisons active. And the enemy had probably 5 or 6 garrisons active, right? So there's a lot of spots on this map that you have to defend. There aren't that many choke points. It just looked to me like there were not that many choke points. It looks like there's a bit of a choke here. Where these flags are, it looks like there's a bit of a choke. So if either of these teams over the next couple hours can get some sort of like nice advantage, they could potentially put a fort here at this choke point right here. You sort of place the fort behind your flags so that it can be safely placed. I think that for Water Camp to get a flag here was a pretty big deal, actually. I think that looks like a pretty good choke. And also one right here. Look, that choke looks a little bit more contested. But it does look like Water Camp got to some of these choke points first. And as much as they're not putting up a fort now, if they can get stable, then they can fort behind some of their flags. And I think that looks like a promising place to put some forts. I think those forts are going to be a little bit more promising than the forts that were placed very early on in this zone. You see that the W08 or the 08 W fort is probably going down here. Actually, they got flags up. Or wait, no, that's is that KT? That's KT. Okay, yeah. So KT is going to take down this fort. KT is actually rotating down here to destroy this fort. Interesting. You would have thought maybe, yeah, they do need to rotate people down here, actually. In order to get this fort down, they will need to rotate down, because you can see that Water Camp is somewhat heavily defending this fort, although I think the majority of the Water Camp ball is somewhere else at the moment. They're north of here, basically. You can even see the chat from the Chinese live stream. It picks up at times. At other times, it's a little bit slow. Some definite reaction here to the rotation here by 41 GT. 41, or not 41 GT, 41 KT, my apologies. And they are going to finally win an open field fight. They're going to finally win one of these open field fights with this rotation down. Cleaning up the ball from 08 W1. When their flags finish, they then will have a clear shot at this fort. And then the question will be twofold, really. I think the initial question is how many of these forts can get destroyed by both teams. I think most of these forts will go down. But then north of here, we're going to see flags touching very, very soon. Very soon. And you just wonder if they're going to be closely contested flags, if one team will let things burn for a bit. My Chinese colleagues, I'm sure, are wondering the same thing. They're like, listen, we have multiple choke points here that we have to that need to be defended. Will we see meta garrisons in all of these choke points, or will we see noobs putting non-meta garrisons and getting easily burned? I'm wondering the same thing. I'm still working on getting a nice desk like these casters have. It's in the shop right now, getting some repairs, but soon I'll have a desk just as good as that. I'll just sit behind it by myself and be like, all right. This is another ROK video. But yes, pretty interesting opening to this zone, for sure. And yeah, just a bit of a break here as we take a deep breath after the first hour of fighting here. Very interesting opening. You know, for those just tuning in, there are two very, very big kingdoms in this KBK. Kingdom 1016 and Kingdom 1041. They are considered the two most powerful kingdoms on the Chinese server. They are against each other for the first time in this KBK. They are not fighting each other directly in this zone. This zone is actually... Each of these juggernauts is fighting against the allies of their opponents. So maybe there was a sense that some of these zones would be a blowout. It does look like GY16 won their zone comfortably. Or not won their zone comfortably, but they got off to a very good start. However, in this zone, in the bottom zone here, Water Camp is putting the screws to 41 KT. They have done well in the field so far. They have done well with their building. They have already destroyed several forts from 1041. And this zone is starting to feel very competitive, and this is the kind of thing that can shift a KVK very early on. This is why these pass openings are so important, because you find out so much when you fight an enemy for the first time. You find out so many things in the first 6 hours or so. You know, that initial meeting of the two murder balls, that's a big deal. You get a sense of the enemy's strength just the first time your murder balls fight each other. But then as the zone goes on, you find out a lot of other things. You find out how coordinated are my opponents? How fast can they build? Building fast is a sign of good coordination. It's a sign of understanding what it takes to win a zone. And it's pressure, right? It's like when an enemy team builds very quickly, it just manifests itself as pressure. You feel that pressure from the enemy. They are in your face quickly. They are putting forts under threat that you wanted to get built safely. They force you to start thinking about, do we need to build other forts instead? If these forts get destroyed, do we need to quickly build some backup forts? And that pressure takes a mental toll on you as a player. And you just find these things out so early in a zone. You find out, okay, is this going to be a relaxing vacation of a KVK? Is this going to be a sort of tough war that lasts for 3 or 4 days, but we kind of know where we stand the whole time, and it's just sort of a nice, solid fight? Or is this going to be a week of hell? Is this going to be a week straight of nonstop fighting, put your life on hold, scrape together, you know, your work responsibilities as you can, find sleep when you can? Is this going to be one of those really, you know, life-affecting zone battles? You find all this stuff out on day one. You learn a lot of it in the first 6 hours. You learn more of it over a 24-hour cycle. You know, all kingdoms have up times and down times. All kingdoms have periods of time where they're strong and periods of time where they're less able to fight. And over that 24-hour period, you really get a very good sense of where you're at and how long a zone is going to take. We can see that there's a different hostess on the Chinese game. You know, the pop-up, the woman who pops up to give you helpful tips the first time you encounter something. I wonder if there's any... I'm not noticing too many other differences. The game looks so familiar, right? Like everything... I think I've been able to follow things pretty well, right? So much of this game is communicated through the colors of the two teams, the colors of the flags, the numbers of the damage being done. Alish, I was provided this stream by Lilith. This is this is the Chinese stream of this war. So Lilith is helping me out stream this. And we are getting a rare glimpse into very high level Chinese server fighting. So this fort is under pressure right now. I'm not seeing the rally. We can see the Gorgo holding steady at the moment. It looks like maybe the rally got swarmed down. It's the blue team. The garrison got switched to a Yan. One of the really tough things to do in a spot like this is to swap captains in these garrisons, because they're not close by. Like these cities of these garrison captains are nowhere near here. Props to Watercamp for having a backup garrison of some sort here. It looks like they're just swarming this fort down. I don't see a rally. Maybe there is a rally. I don't see it. Blue is enveloping this fort at this point. They are taking the field here a bit. This Yan getting very low. We do see some marches that look to be swarming this thing that are very low. We see a Scipio with very low health that looks to be swarming this. The Gorgo gets back in. Wow, incredible garrison swapping here by Water Camp. They have actually swapped this garrison twice in a fort that is under construction. You wonder if the Gorgo got popped or what, but the Gorgo back in, the Gorgo very low health. You can see that the city line is, the flag line is there for Water Camp. So if they can hold here, maybe they can stabilize. Heavy pressure on this Gorgo. It still is holding up. We can see the other view here. We can see that the build time indicates that it's not full, but it's not low. It's actually, this fort is getting filled up. We can see the build time increasing right around 2 hours. The Xeno now in the garrison. So many garrison swaps here. The Xeno's going to be pretty good against a swarm here. It just keeps it a little more steady. The trade does not matter here. For either team, the trade does not matter. It's about getting this fort down. Both teams heavy focusing now on this W08W1 fort. Xeno garrison now looking full. It looks like at some point all the rallying stopped, or all the swarming stopped. This garrison was able to refresh its health bar. That does not mean that it refreshed what's in the garrison, but they are filling this garrison up very quickly. It doesn't look full. It's actually going to be about full here. This zone has been going on for about 80 minutes, so the build time here is pretty consistent with a full fort. 41 GT still has the field here, but both flag lines are at this fort. Both flag lines are here at this fort, so big players will be able to teleport close, refresh quickly. Both teams are going to be furiously trying to open up as much teleport space around here as possible. I'm surprised we're not seeing forts getting built on the right side of this red team's flag line. You just got to open up all the teleport space you can. It's a tight area. It does look like 41 GT has a lot more teleport space here. Water Camp is going to have to hold this fort for close to 90 minutes. And they just don't have the field right now. I mean, even right now, there's no rally hitting yet. The rally, I'm sure, is forming up. But even with where the field is at right now, this is a very tough hold. I think, generally speaking, with this kind of field control for the blue team on the left, for 41, with this kind of field control, they will be able to take down this fort. Now, we do see back forts starting to get built now. Pretty aggressive fort by 41 KT near the front. Here's another fort. This fort is in deep trouble. There's no flag line here to protect this 08W3 fort. Yan garrison. Boy, 2 Yans so far today, 0 Eleanors. You know? I do have the Eleanor. I barely used her yesterday. But that's for another video. Yeah, that fort's looking in deep trouble there. That fort's gone. That fort's gone. 41 KT will be able to get to some of these other forts soon. As predicted, a lot of these forts are likely going to go down. It looks like a rally. Yep, rally in. Rally in on this 0W8 fort. A Nevsky rally. No, not like this. Not like this. This Nevsky can be swarmed down. The Nevsky Justinian rally can be swarmed down if the red team can reach it, and it looks like they are reaching this Nevsky rally. That is not the right choice for a rally. In an artifact KVK, where you can do all sorts of tanky combinations, a Scipio Attila, for example, could be used here. Or an Attila Lucci. I mean, just if you wanted to go Cav, why not go Attila Lucci instead of Justinian Nevsky? Justinian Nevsky just gets swarmed down so quickly. And so the rally, well, the rally's still up, and they're nuking it down. They're trying to nuke down this Xeno. Switching to Gorgo, rally, or building very low, fort very low. They are stabilizing this rally. They have kept this rally up with their open field control. And this fort, despite the suboptimal rally here, this fort is in deep, deep trouble. But we'll see. Of course, players can only put one march into this fort. They've done a great job of march swapping in this fort to keep this thing up as long as they have. You want to keep this thing up as long as you have. You undoubtedly have a bunch of people swarming this fort, and they are probably taking bad trades. This rally under heavy pressure again. Boy, they are keeping this thing up, and it's fairly full. This fort is fairly full again. Incredible reinforcing job by Water Camp here. They have this fort almost full again. You can see that the field is getting a little bit more in Water Camp's favor. They are the blue team on the right. They might hold this thing for round 2, although the rally is still up as well. This Nevsky Justinian rally holding up. Both teams doing an amazing job of reinforcing, honestly. Yeah, I think that's really the thing that I'm seeing here the most is like both teams have players who are not fully focused on the field. They are focused on reinforcing rallies and garrisons. It looked like the rally has been taken down. And the fort is up. And no one's swarming it. Interesting. Looks like they held again. Looks like they canceled the swarm as soon as that rally died. The fort is full once again. Boy, that was a good opportunity for 41 KT there. Toon Middle kept saying, this fight looks insane. And yeah, Toon, thank you for the fights earlier. We did fight, we did have a war yesterday in 770. Very, very good fight yesterday on this King of Britain map. That's sort of why I was reacting so harshly to the Justinian, or to the Nevsky Justinian rally. Last night, our enemies dropped a fort on the front lines, a very similar fort to this one. And we had a couple of moments where our field took over all of the area around their fort. You know, we had everything around their fort surrounded, and one of our ally kingdoms, they launched 2 Justinian Nevsky rallies back to back. And, you know, you don't hold the field permanently. Like, just because you're holding the field right now doesn't mean that in 20, 30 minutes that you're still going to hold that field. You have to take advantage of an opportunity when it is in front of you. And a Justinian Nevsky rally that gets swarmed down so easily, where it's very hard to keep it full, it also doesn't really trade well against a Gorgo garrison or an infantry garrison. I really think that was the wrong choice for that rally. Last night we had two cav rallies that got swarmed down easily. Then our own player Uni broke out the Scipio. I believe it was I should know what the secondary was on this rally, but I don't quite remember what the secondary was. But he broke out a Scipio Aemilianus rally that absolutely ripped through the garrison. It ripped through the fort that was under construction. We got like this amazing trade, and then the fort was down. You know what I mean? It like the rally combination changed everything. It changed everything. And for Kingdom 41, they had the field. They had the opportunity to take that fort down, but they just had the wrong rally to do it. And now, you know, now the field is equal. Now the field is even, and based on what we have seen so far here, Water Camp, when they have an even field, I mean, look at this. Look at the footage on the left, where they have a very thick flag area here, right next to this fort. They have already proven that they can keep this fort up when they're slightly losing the field. Imagine what they can do if they are able to have a 50-50 balance in the field, or right now they actually have a bit of an advantage in the field. I mean, that was a real big opportunity squandered by the 10-time KVK champs from Kingdom 41. And we got a fight on our hands here. We got a real fight on our hands here in the bottom zone of the King of Britain map. Water Camp coming up big here. I'm very impressed with how they were able to keep that garrison reinforced and also swap captains multiple times. Really good job by the defense there. They've got the look at now. They've got now they have the range line set up as well. A bunch of ranged marches, getting very good value here. You know, the ranged marches know where this fight is going to be. That's what's really nice if you're a siege player here, is that you know the fight is going to happen right at this fort for an indeterminate period of time. So you can set up shop. You really don't have to move much. Now, they could get overrun. But as long as their teammates can just sort of keep the line where it is now, those siege marches are going to absolutely eat. And they have a lot of siege. That's a lot of siege right there. I mean, it's tough to count, but it feels like that's maybe 12 to 15 siege marches. We can kind of track it where we see them pulsing at roughly the same time. It's got to be at least 15 siege marches. At least 15 siege marches there for Water Camp. Now, with all those siege marches, that means that there's going to be less frontline marches to fight, but if they can just hold the line here, if Water Camp on the right side can just hold this line here, they're going to get very good trades. They're going to get very, very good trades. So that was a huge hold. That was a huge hold right there. I thought that fort was going down. I honestly thought that fort was going down because of how much of a field advantage 41 had. And it did get very low. We saw that health bar of the Xeno swapped to a Gorgo. We saw that health bar at almost 0. I mean, that thing was as low as it can go without getting burst. And they brought that thing they brought it all the way back up. The rally stayed alive a lot longer than anyone expected. I think that was what surprised the defense, is that they were not able to swarm the rally down. And then at that point, the burst the burst damage on the fort was quite devastating, but they barely held it. They got it back up. And now they're comfortable for the moment. I mean, they still have to hold this thing for another 70 minutes, but you know, this, if you're in 41's shoes now, where 41, I think, was undoubtedly the favorite to win this zone, and considering they had won 10 KVKs, they're one of the most winningest Whale Kingdoms in the game. I don't know if they were the favorite in this KVK or not, but they probably were feeling pretty good about this zone, at least. And at this point, you know, you're like, oh my gosh, are we going to lose all of our forts? And is the enemy going to get a fort up in this very important position? I mean, this 08W1 fort is very close to the holy site here. The holy site in the center of this zone gives 3% all damage. Very important holy site in the middle of this King of Britain zone. That is one of the differences on this map compared to most Zone 5s. Most Zone 5s have relatively insignificant holy sites, but 3% all damage at the... I'm actually not sure what it's called. It has a very strange name. But it's the center holy site in this zone. And the other thing about this zone is that you do have the Burrs as well. You have the Viking and English Burrs, where you want to control the territory around the Burr so that you can claim it every 3 days and you get more stratagem points. Your players can get more stratagem points by holding those Burrs. So this is one of the more important Zone 5s in the game, I would say. And I think that's a very good development for the game, is to have strategically relevant Zone 5s it makes these Zone 5 fights less of an exhibition match, which they have historically been, and more of a strategical imperative if you want to have good positive momentum going forward in the KVK. Not just momentum from a morale point of view, but morale from a strength point of view. You get that all damage, you get those burrs, you're able to have your players equip more stratagems going forward, and that just helps you in future fights. I mean, 3% all damage on every march that you have that your enemy doesn't have, that's a very big deal. 3% all damage. Why do they only zoom in on this caster? There's 3 casters on the booth here. They should get equal time, right? Isn't there an equal time provision in Chinese ROK broadcasting where you zoom in on every commentator the same amount? I don't understand. I'm so confused. Oh, the other 2 are looking at their screen. That's what it is. The woman on the right doesn't have a screen. The other 2 are blocked by their screen a little bit. You do wonder what their assessment of these first 90 minutes are compared to mine. I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect, but ultimately the action has proven to be better than we could have hoped for here. Super competitive fight here. And it's still going on. This is shades of... Who was it? I'm blanking. This is shades of 489 and 960 against 1093 in that Alliance Invictus Zone 6, right? Really, really big fights around forts that are under construction. And if I'm not mistaken, some of those forts did get built. I feel like 489 had a fort in a sort of similar position to this, where they had enough field to create an equilibrium situation, and they did manage to get the fort up. The other wrinkle about that KVK, and I think we're also going to have that in this zone, is that there were all these rotations. Like, there were basically 2 areas. There were 2 choke points that 93 was fighting their enemies against, and we would see the balls rotate from one choke point to another. It was about a 90-second walk, and one side would rotate their ball, and then the other side would have to sort of rotate in response. But this is not the only fighting that's happening in this zone. They're actually touching flags north of here. North of here, they're actually touching flags. So as much as there is a heavy focus here, as there rightly should be, there's also fighting happening elsewhere in this zone, like very important fighting happening elsewhere in this zone. And probably what's happening is that the players who are teleported to those other areas, they're fighting there. Whereas like the players who have been teleported, they're farther back, they're all being sent this area around the fort. And we do see once again here, did I miss something? I'm trying. I feel like I'm not seeing the. Oh no, there's the fort. Okay, yeah, the fort's still up. Yeah, but what you're seeing now is that 41 is again pushing. We saw a lot of red marches walking away. Look, there's a lot of red marches walking away. They're not sad facing. I think that's I think that's crazy. I think you have to sad face here and get that quick walk home. Open field fighting in Rise of Kingdoms is a pendulum. The Plato pendulum is always in effect. And now we have heavy, heavy pressure on this fort. It looks like this fort's about to go down. I don't see the rally. I'm not sure what the rally was there, but open field dominance plus the rally, and that fort, just like that, is donezo. And now 41 is also pressuring some of these flags. It was always a tough ask to hold that fort, but it went down with a whimper, not a bang. But you also do see that, you know, there might have been a bit of a priority shift here by Water Camp. They have so much of the ball is down here at the holy site, and they're trying to get some of these flags up at the holy site. I think they probably shifted. I think the reason that fort went down is because Water Camp shifted down to the holy site because they want to get this flag up. They have a flag under construction here. You can see just at the bottom of the screen, there's a flag under construction for the red team. And they just want to make sure they get that flag up. They decided that that flag is actually more important than the fort. And you can see why, because this flag can potentially block a bunch of other things, right? You know, this flag here from 41 is going to protect the fort that they are building behind. Like, this fort is being protected by the flag that 41 got up right next to the holy site. And now the red team is trying to do the same thing. They're trying to get a flag up so that they can protect stuff behind. And so this fight is going to get very, very hectic very soon. Right here where we're zooming in and out. I don't have the build time on. Yeah, that fort's going down. That fort's done. But it's this flag right here. These flags that are under construction. Look at this. Look at this. Everybody converging on this flag. It's going to be hard. It's going to be so hard. You know what? They can't defend this flag. With this kind of open field presence from blue, you just can't defend a flag. I mean, defending a fort is one thing, but a flag is so much tougher to defend. You just cannot defend a under construction flag if you don't have field. That is why the water camp poured down here. What I see is that, like, the teleport space is so much better for 41 GT, right? They just have more robust teleport space to this spot. They have a much shorter walk to get here. And it's starting to look like all these forts are going to go down. Now, see, here's why these flags are so important. What 41 wanted to do was flag across this holy site and protect their 41 F1 fort with flags. They're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to do that. I think all these forts are going down. I think every single one of these forts are going down. And it's just a question of who can get a flag where. But even that's not that important, right? Because, like, yeah, it takes an hour to burn down a flag, but I mean, you have the rest of eternity to burn down a flag. So this is quickly transitioning from a build game to a military game. Whichever team is stronger in conventional ROK warfare is going to take control of this holy site. It doesn't feel like either team is going to get up any forts touching this holy site. And at that point, it's just a bunch of flags surrounding 3% all damage. I think that's the 3% all damage one. There are other holy sites in the zone as well. So they got up this flag. And now, can either team place a flag in this open area? Probably. I would have to imagine you can build a flag here. Obviously, the marches are blocked. Yep, there's a flag being built now by 41 GT. Or KT, and they have shifted the control of this open field at this point. Now, it does matter where all the marches are. As I said, their teleport space does seem to be better. But as we start rolling into conventional fighting, as much as Water Camp has looked good early in the zone, they haven't gotten anything from it. They haven't gotten an advantage that I see from their good opening. At this point, the zone feels pretty fair. When I look at this holy site, it feels a bit like the left side has a natural advantage because they're not blocked by mountains quite as much. And so their teleport space is a little more clean around this holy site. You see the mountains there on the right. Maybe restrict teleport space a little bit, but it looks like it's pretty... Territory-wise, it just feels pretty even at this point. We're going to see a few more forts get destroyed, but we're just kind of assuming at this point that those forts will be destroyed. And this is where, you know, listen, I mean, I talked about pressure earlier. I talked about where you feel the pressure from the enemy based on how quickly they build and connect to you and you know, what they're able to destroy. For me, the more oppressive type of pressure is actually what we're seeing from 41 now. It's just the open field pressure. You know, when the enemy has a stronger open field than you have, life just gets more difficult. You have to decide where to ball up. You have to decide, you know, how organized you're going to be, or whether you kind of just let people free flow and try to fight back that way. You have trouble defending flags. You have to try to reinforce flags while getting attacked by enemy marches. I mean, this to me is this is the corporate oppressive power in Rise of Kingdoms. It's just like straight open field power. It's power that never goes away, that never changes. It's reliable power, or it's reliable pressure, right? If you have really strong open field, you just are able to apply reliable pressure that you just know is going to always be there, right? It's like, yeah, we're a strong open field group. We show up in numbers. And it's ever present. It's ever present pressure. And that's what 41 is applying at the moment. We're starting to see a bit why they are 10-time Lost Kingdom champions. They've got a double moon. I don't know if I can show it to you. Yeah, it's just it's a different logo. It's a different logo that they have. It's not a moon. It's not even a moon. I'm not sure what it is. It's like a medal. It's almost like they have a medal, like a gold medal for their logo for having 10 KBK wins. But they are fighting in a 1v2. It's two camps on the water camp here. And water camp has gotten set up pretty well. It's a pretty cool fight over here. Like I said, since both teams can reach this holy site quickly, it's fairly rare that you get a fort built. And so you end up fighting around this holy site. Everybody has quick access to a rune, and there's a lot of open field, right? There's this whole open area at the holy site where there are no cities. So you get a bit more of a wide open field fight. We fought around this structure for quite a while yesterday, and yeah, it was a pretty good fight actually. It was a good fight. I hope I'm still up. Okay, I'm still up. Let's get a little bit of It's getting a little bit of weird messages from YouTube. They want me to reconfirm my identity during the match. I'm like, come on. Rexiel, good morning to you. I do have war going on in my own kingdom right now. I'm taking a break from that to spectate this one. And I'm starting to think this isn't chat. This is like some other message that I'm getting here. But the Chinese stuff should clear away here in a bit. And I wonder if I could have gone higher frames here. Do throw a like on the stream if you are enjoying this coverage. That will help me out a lot. I really do appreciate this opportunity to live stream this KVK. And hopefully you all are enjoying the look in at high level Chinese server pass opening action. Ultimately, this is like valuable footage that you never know who's going to consult this footage later. Just see how certain things get done by the Chinese server. I mean, I'm not seeing play that's that. I don't. The builds were not that different. I'm not like amazed by the builds of these two kingdoms. What I was really impressed by was the reinforcing of both the rallies and the garrisons. At that contested fort fight, I thought the reinforcing was really, really, really good. They kept the open field going as they reinforced, but I think that goes to show how much of a game changer it is to do great reinforcing of a structure. It can sometimes feel like because you're losing in the open field that you are inevitably going to lose the objective, but sometimes some really good reinforcing can make the difference. You can accomplish lots and lots of objectives even if you're losing the open field. And, you know, just filling stuff up is one of the ways to skin that cat. You can see the 1041 has now got their eye on some of these other forts from Water Camp. The 08W3 fort is under heavy, heavy pressure. It's getting close to being finished, but it's just not going to matter. 11 minutes now on this flag here, and that flag will actually... Well, they're already touching this fort. They're already touching this fort. And so this thing's just going down. You've even got a whale teleported right next to this fort. Boy, the random teleports in a zone that just happened to land in a super important spot. Such a big deal. There was a player on the enemy team yesterday in our fight. He teleported right next to the holy site. And it was he was just right in the choke point of where our entire ball was walking to join the fight of our allies. And this player was about 110 million power. I think his name was Maranzino or something like that. And I mean, he just harassed the crap out of us for 3 hours straight. I was losing my mind on voice because ultimately what happened was we were about to place a flag underneath this player's city. They imprisoned him. And then And then that meant that he was not teleported out because our flag had finished by the time his imprison ended. We kept trying to build another flag underneath this player. The enemy destroyed the flag 3 or 4 times. And that player stayed for about an hour longer than they would have if we had imprisoned him. Rally now coming in on this fort. Jan Garrison. Wow. So we've got the Scipio rally. Let's see what the secondary is with this Scipio Aemilianus rally. Scipio, probably the #1 rally commander. Scipio Wallace. Yeah, Scipio Wallace is a popular rally as well. Non-artifact rally, but the Scipio Wallace rally is getting plenty of run these days. I know plenty of infantry rally leaders who do prefer this rally. Good anti-swarm and good damage and good synergy between those two commanders. And they're going to rip apart that Jan. We may not see it live, but I can predict the future or predict the invisible present, which is that Jan just got destroyed and that fort is down. So we're just waiting to get back into the game now. And I'm wrong. The Jan is still alive. All right. I cannot see the invisible present, but I can tell you what's happening in the visible current day. The Scipio Aemilianus rally is at half health. The garrison has just been switched to a Gorgo. It is a half full garrison, a little bit less. Now the garrison is very low. The rally is being kept very full. This is the power of the Aemilianus rally, is that it is very tanky. And with the Wallace, you get the anti-swarm as well, so the swarmers of that rally are getting nuked down very quickly. So Scipio Aemilianus is a stable rally that can do damage. And that is very good in real-world applications in Rise of Kingdoms. It may not be impressive on paper. The reports may not be amazing all the time, but it is a commander who gets the job done from a rally perspective. I don't know how they are keeping this fort full. Watercamp taking advantage of the higher capacity in this fort than there is in this rally. But even though they are dominated in the field, they are somehow getting marches in. We see marches at the bottom of the screen streaming in without too much trouble. And they are doing their darndest to keep this fort up, but it is very low now. It's about to go down. Scipio Wallace rally taking down another fort from Watercamp. Forts are dropping like flies in this zone, and all that is left are flags. And that flag is... that's an interesting flag. You wouldn't think it would... it's like... I guess because they started the flag sooner, that flag is still being built, but... oh, no. It's now a... yeah, it's now a 41 flag here. And they're going to try to build that flag very, very quickly. I would assume Watercamp will get their flag built first. There's almost no way they won't get their flag built first. So, again, this is another touch point around this holy site. You can see how close the opening to this zone has been, where both teams have a foothold at this holy site. Ultimately, 41 has a bit more territory around this building. I'm just going to call it a sanctuary. It's not a sanctuary. It gives 3% all damage. It has a very specific British name. But around this building, the team on the left has about 3/4 of the territory. Watercamp on the right has about 1/4 of the territory. That's a pretty fair opening after 90 minutes into this zone. They are touching flags in many other places on the map. Those forts are going down. The alt camp, or the alt coalition from 41 is building on the bottom side of the map. You can definitely flank in these zones. This is the burr. This is the burr I was talking about earlier, where you basically just visit the burr and get a certain amount of stratagem points. When the zone opens, at least how it worked on the international server, control of the burr was simply based on whoever went to it first. You don't need to touch it or anything like that. You just need to send marches to it and touch this building here in the center. I think maybe you need like 100 control points to take it. I think if we look at this burr, it's not under fully controlled yet. Yeah, it looks like, see, so this burr is not fully controlled yet. Interesting. I think that's a bit of a risk for water. I do think they want to get this thing under control right away. Because once you control the burr, the other team cannot get any stratagem points from it for about a 3-day period. And the other interesting thing about the burrs is that when you scroll over the burr, you hear this burning sound. Even if you have all the sounds in the game turned off, you will still hear the burning of the burr as you pan your camera near it. Siege marches all over this battlefield. 41 setting up siege marches underneath the enemy flag, feeling very confident. These siege marches are feeling very confident in this spot. But they are surrounded by enemy cities. Pretty risky location for all these siege marches. All these other players can just bring their marches out and attack them. It looks like it's a bit of a bait, a bit of a trap here with these Gonzalos and Margarets, where they're baiting these players to come out of their cities, attack the ranged marches, and then a bunch of real fighters get involved and get some very good trades. And these ranged marches are holding up. They're still alive. So a healthy amount of siege being employed here by both of these Chinese kingdoms. We actually have a Chinese ally. We are fighting with 69 Kingdom 1698 in our KBK. And they are a full Chinese alliance as well. And they had a bit of siege yesterday. Definitely more siege than we have. Not a ton, but like a bit of siege. Definitely a bit of siege. It does feel like the Chinese community has picked up on siege more so than the international one. We certainly saw GT being one of the forerunners of the siege meta on the international server. We're definitely seeing more siege here than we see in most international KVKs. I mean, I think siege is good, right? I think it's totally valid to build a siege march. My issue with, or my thing for not building siege is just that it's a different type of control. You have to control the siege march so differently than you control your other marches that, for me, I just don't want to deal with that hassle of constantly moving the siege march around. I would rather just have all my marches moving together in the field, press one hotkey to select all those marches, and then move them back and forth as I please. Popo, welcome to the stream. Good to have you here. Raxiel giving me an update from RKBK. Pretty quiet on the lines at the moment. Allies pushing them at the pass now. So yeah, we had a very intense first day of fighting in our Zone 5. It's the same map as this. It's a different zone. And yeah, the first day of fighting was very intense, but ultimately it's a big zone. You can definitely flank. But, you know, flanking does have its disadvantages also, which is that you have to cover a lot of territory. You have to teleport around quite a bit, and your forces are spread out across multiple alliances. The nice thing about building in the middle of the map and having a tight bit of territory is that, number one, it doesn't take you as long to travel from one location to another. Number two, it's not as easy to cut you off because you've built up redundancy in your flag line. Last night we were trying to flank the enemy, and they then popped Skillful Craftsman and tried to cut us off. That was one of the more harried moments of the day there. So it'll be interesting to see how these two teams build. It does look like 41 is trying to flank along the bottom side. But the way this particular zone is built, it looks like kind of condensed. It looks like flanking is not as big of a deal in this zone as in some of the other Zone 5s. This map is very different, right? Like, all these Zone 5s play very differently on this map. This almost feels like a Zone 6 Alliance Invictus type of map, where all of the key fighting happens right in the middle. Whereas our zone that goes north to south, it was, you know, you had a bunch of side play. Like, yeah, you could fight in the middle, but you could just as easily fight on the sides, and the sides were in many ways just as important. This has a bit of a Zone 6 Alliance Invictus feel here, which means that it's going to be a slugfest. We do see Water Camp at the moment pushing back a little bit here. I would imagine some of their flags are burning, though. It's nice to have open field control, but the real key is to have open field control when a flag is being attacked. In the downtime between flags burning, quite a bit less important to have open field control. This is going to be another spot where two flags connect very soon. This is undoubtedly going to be a very important spot for both teams to fight at, because, you know, this is just obvious value here around this holy site. If you can take all the area around this holy site, that's just extreme value. You can then place some forts where, you know, you're protected. Even if you have a bit of downtime, you can be protected by those forts. There are obviously other important parts of this zone. I think the area north of here where they've been touching for a while, that is also an important part of the zone, because you start getting closer and closer to the passes at that point, and you start getting into territory where you could potentially cut the enemy off. But I think both these camps will probably end up building a lot of back forts to connect their territory from inside the zone, so that if you do get cut off in parts, if you do get cut off near the pass, you're not cut off with all of this forward territory. I think we're going to see a lot of back forts getting built, and we're going to see very heavy fighting around this holy site for the next hour or so. Yeah, really big numbers here. Really big numbers for both teams. Like, we see that Ragnar Alex again. If you're just tuning in, the latest from the front lines of Rise of Kingdoms is that Ragnar Prime is legit. Ragnar Prime is a very, very good commander. I got a very strong endorsement last night from Algebra that Ragnar Prime, in his opinion, Ragnar Prime is better than Scipio Prime. But the real thing to do is pair those two great infantry commanders together. Scipio primary, Ragnar secondary. We are see Ragnar also working as a primary, though, being paired here with Alex. Ragnar Prime. You know, some people have been on that one. I might be a little bit late to the party on Ragnar Prime, but he's definitely a meta commander. Much more so than Shajar. And it remains to be seen if Philip, the new leadership commander, remains to be seen how effective Philip will be as well. Will Philip be a Honda Tadakatsu type commander, where essentially it's just a versatile commander that can be paired with a lot of different commanders? It's a commander that you can use later on in the KVK with mixed troops when you start running out. Or will Philip be just a top line meta commander that you pair with all sorts of different combos, whether it's Scipio, whether it's Huo, maybe an Ashurbanipal, I think would be a pair that would make a lot of sense with Philip. Here's the report of that rally on the fort that we watched about 10 minutes ago, you see there that the Scipio Aemilianus Wallace rally traded very well. Very high march capacity on this rally. That's a big, big whale right there who's getting a lot of march capacity on that garrison. Or on that rally, excuse me. And here's the report from the garrison, I believe. So, yeah, big damage for the offense here. You know, I will say playing yesterday, CY is really strong for sure. CY is a great garrison commander. But I think in Artifact KVKs, when you've got like a Scipio Wallace rally, when you've got a Asher Tariq rally, when you've got some of these really strong meta combo rallies can get some very good trades. Very, very good trades. We've seen it in this KVK, right? We saw a great rally on a city, and just there we saw a great report against a building fort. So, you know, from a very, very high level meta perspective, I would say that CY really was a necessary addition to the game. I would have loved it if it had been a Cav garrison that changed the game, because I'm a Cav garrison, but CY has changed the game in terms of giving an even more robust anti-swarm garrison. But it has not made defense stronger than offense. I don't think. I think offense is still very strong. Swarming flags and forts is still very good. You know, Aemilianus and Asher are both great rallies. So there's a pretty good balance between offense and defense at the moment, from what I have seen. I do think forts are pretty tough. I think it's tough to burn down a fort that has already been built, because it's just so hard to swarm a fort. But really, it's still an open field game. Rise of Kingdoms is an open field game, and we are seeing very big open field fighting here in this Zone 5 on the Chinese server. We're about 90 minutes into this fight, and the numbers here are quite impressive for one kingdom, right? This is one kingdom against two. And yeah, very impressive numbers. Not crazy numbers compared to what we see in big international KVKs. I would say this is just familiar territory. This is about what we see numbers wise from big international servers. But I think the filling, the garrison rally filling that we've seen is maybe a little sharper than some of the international kingdoms. Certainly sharper than the kingdom I'm in. And we're actually pretty good at filling. But open field wise, this looks about like what we see from the top international kingdoms, whether that's 1960, 1093, 2489, or 2377, who we saw in action yesterday. I am not sure what happened in that zone with 2377 and 1365. I don't know if they fought each other. I don't know what happened in those zones. I was busy fighting all day yesterday. I had barely enough time to watch a little bit of Thursday Night Football on the frozen tundra in Cleveland. Then I got some sleep, and right into this Chinese server action here. And this has been pretty good to follow. It's been pretty easy to follow because so much of the fighting has happened right at this holy site here that gives 3% all damage. You see here what I'm saying about that, about the mountain, right? The mountain on the right side, to me, is pretty rough. they could have built a bunch of teleport space there near this holy site, but because of that mountain range, they're not able to build as much teleport space right at this holy site. I do think that's a bit of a disadvantage for the water camp, but at the same time, I think they had an advantage in terms of being able to flag very quickly against Earth camp. So in these non-symmetrical zones, one team can have certain advantages over another. I think that's fine. I don't think you want symmetrical zones. I think you want points of interest and points of differentiation on these maps. And it just sort of shakes out as it does in terms of one team having small advantages over another. You got to play the ball as it lies. You got to play the zone as it has been constructed and laid out. And yeah, we're all getting to look at this for the first time. I think, you know what I really like about this zone is that it's hard to get up a fort. I like that it's very hard to put a fort up and have it actually survive. You know, there are some zones where you can just build quickly and either the enemy can't reach a fort in time, or more often you can just build and wrap your own flags around it, protect it that way. But in this zone, the most important spots really, you can't get a fort up easily. And I think that's good, right? Let's have some flag fighting early on. We're seeing it manifest here. This is a great open field fight here between these two teams. You know, at the moment, neither team able to get much of an edge. As it stands now, neither team is going to be able to burn at this location. There are other locations on the map where potentially there could be some burning. You know, there's some choke points that are non-relevant, really, at this stage of the zone. But that river could be important later on. Or a defensive team could even build a fort wall around some of this river here, I think. Another quirk about this zone is that the enemy elimination event starts before the pass is open. So they are already in the enemy elimination event. You've also got the Autarch scoreboard, obviously. That's a great addition to this game, in my opinion, is the Autarch scoreboard that goes for the entire KVK. You can see who the top fighters are. You can also track your own ratio. You can see your kills to heal ratio all the way through. I probably checked my heals to kill ratio 8 or 9 times yesterday. It's just the kind of thing that when you have a good fight, you like to see that ratio improve. When you're getting wrecked for a while, you worry that your ratio is going to dip negative. But I think everyone, or a lot of players, enjoy being able to track their stats in that sort of way. I think the Autarch scoreboard is a great addition to the game. And, you know, we have lately seen a lot of KVKs where there's just tons and tons of open field fighting. And people want to rank up on those scoreboards, for sure. Little info about the burr here in Chinese. Hopefully you all can read Chinese and understand this. I can read it, but I can't speak it, so I'm not going to translate for you. Deal with it. This flag is still under construction. I don't know why. I guess, you know what? I actually think that Watercamp might have destroyed one of 41's flags, actually. I think Watercamp destroyed an Earthcamp flag here, and they're now putting up one of their own flags. You can see it's being built somewhat safely. That being said, this flag is connected to Earthcamp. The team in blue can rally this flag that is under construction. So the push that is happening right now by Watercamp is very productive. This is a very productive open field push here because it is protecting the flag that they are trying to build. And this is a hugely important flag under construction here. This flag would open up a ton of teleport space at this holy site. So props to Watercamp for mobilizing a lot of people in the right place at the right time. They are pushing back 41 right now and trying to secure the flag they have being built. They are definitely leaning on them right now. A much different story in the open field than it was 15 minutes ago. Red team now very much turning things around, applying a lot of pressure. And yeah, I mean, it's a pretty, that's a nice little turn of events there. Let me just quickly get a little water. How do the pro streamers do it? How do the pro streamers talk for 3 or 4 hours straight, barely ever drink water, keep their voice, and not take big sighs of relief like I just did? Oh, look at all these flags. Look at all these flags they're building now. So huge effort here by Watercamp, trying to get a bunch of flags up. These flags can be attacked by 41, but they just don't have the field to do it. Watercamp imposing their will at this moment. Players random teleporting out. They thought they might be able to live in this exact spot for a long time. It was looking that way, but over the last 5 to 10 minutes, Kingdom 08 and Kingdom 133 has put the pedal to the metal here, and they are taking control of the open field around this holy site. Sunglasses are on. Cool shades being deployed. And they are basically trying to make this a half and half. They are trying to make this holy site control be about 50-50. And it's just going to be the amount of fighting that's going to happen around this holy site for the rest of today is going to be massive. I mean, we're pretty much in prime time, China time right now, here at about 7 UTC. Both teams will have heavy presence for many hours. Maybe one team will be able to find a way to take some territory. But if not, I think what we'll see is we'll see both teams hunker down, get some very strong cities or some very strong farms near these flags. And if neither team is able to burn the other during this prime time when everybody's online, you wonder what they'll be able to do later when there's a bit of downtime, of course, all of these kingdoms are from China, and so they all theoretically have the same downtime. I wonder what a Chinese server war is like when it's the middle of the night in China, where like literally both teams are on their downtime. Do they just voluntarily all take a break at the same time, or are there some sweaty upstarts who try to, you know, organize their team and actually make progress during the Chinese downtime? I know that anyway. We'll see how this develops here. It does look like the water camp has two main alliances. It feels like... Boy, I'd love to see the power. Let me see if I can get an answer about how many main alliances these kingdoms have. Because what I had heard in the past, right? You know, this is actually clearing up some misconceptions for me, right? Because what I had heard in the past was that Chinese kingdoms had 3 or 4 alliances. But from what I'm seeing on this map, that doesn't seem to be the case, right? This doesn't feel like these are kingdoms with, you know, 3 or 4 alliances. Maybe 41 has 2 alliances. I don't know. I mean, they've got 25 billion power in their main alliance. But this... It feels a bit like these are like 1 alliance kingdoms, maybe 2 alliances. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's that different than the international server, though, right? Like, obviously a lot has happened with the international server where we used to have 3 or 4 alliance kingdoms, and now we're down to almost everybody being a 1 alliance kingdom. At most, you're going to have 2 alliances. And that's been like a pretty profound shift over the last couple of years. What I had heard was that that same shift did not happen on the Chinese server, but watching this war between 2 very, very big kingdoms, it doesn't feel to me like there's more than 2 alliances at most in these kingdoms. I do wonder what this Chinese text that scrolls across the stream from time to time is. It looks like they're saying the same thing over and over again. I'm not sure what it is. You know what it might be? When they cut to the studio? That might be a commercial break, right? They might be cutting to the studio for a commercial break. No commercials on my stream today. I was very thankful for this opportunity, so I turned off the monetization. Everyone is getting free and clear, non-stop footage and live coverage, in fact, of one of the biggest wars to hit the Chinese server in quite a long time. Kingdom 16 and their allies against Kingdom 41 and their allies. They are considered the 2 most powerful kingdoms on the Chinese server. They are going head-to-head after having a bitter rivalry for many years. They are not fighting head-to-head today. They're actually fighting each other's allies at this point. And thus far, it appears that it is actually 1016's allies who are performing better. Water Camp performing very well here. We have not been able to see much from the other zone, which tells me that that zone is less interesting than this one. It looks like perhaps GY16 is having their way with Fire Camp, which is Kingdom 21 and Kingdom 30. But I would love to see some of the flag battles, right? I'd love to see some of the flag battles over there on the left to see what kind of numbers are at those flags. Because as much as the holy site is quite important, there are other points of conflict on the map. There's no pop-up at either of those locations, so my sense is that maybe there's not a lot of fighting. But we do see on the map right now, we see a couple spots where turquoise is touching red, and there's fighting there. There's flags touching, and there's probably one side burning the other. But most of the focus is on this holy site, as this is the more urgent matter. Teams will be able to take control of the holy site faster than they'll be able to break through heavy flag lines closer to the pass. This area is more important, but not way more important. I mean, there are so many other touch points on this map, and as a kingdom, your ability to control those touch points, to be in multiple places at once, to burn your enemies in multiple spots, that is roughly as important as being able to muster massive open field play in one spot, right? I would say the most important thing is that massive effort in one spot, but being able to do stuff in all these other areas is also quite important. It's a different type of skill. You need to have lots of good garrisons, lots of good rallies, and you need some good execution in multiple ways. You need good filling with farms. You need good swarming with whales. But if you can do really good work on the quieter parts of the map, that goes a long way to winning a war. Even if you're not necessarily dominant in the big fight, you know, the big open field brawl that's always going on. We might be going to another commercial break here on the Chinese server in 5 seconds. I see a little countdown timer. Let's see. Let's see. Nope. Just scanning the map a little bit here, as this open field fight is pretty stable. Look at all the siege marches. Look at all the siege marches for water camp. Can I add these up real quick? Yeah, definitely 15 siege marches. I think 15 is a good estimate of how many ranged marches we see. And then something's coming in here. What is that? Look at that. Look at that icon. Oh, I think it's just a couple of marches, but yeah, they're trying to build another flag here, a bit more forward. A cheeky flag here by water camp. It's about half a screen away from the blue ball. And, you know, for now, the flag's looking good. And actually, this flag might have been up for a bit of time here. Tons of siege marches on blue as well. Actually, probably even more siege marches for blue. This is like another reason why it's good to be able to put in work on multiple areas of the map, because like in this fight right here, whichever team has more ranged marches really has a pretty nice advantage. They might not take the field more often, but they're going to get better trades. I think these ranged marches are getting incredibly good trades right now. So if the only thing you can do is fight in one place, then you're at the mercy of a few things. You're at the mercy of how many ranged marches you have versus the enemy. You're at the mercy of how much crystal tech, whales, and open field fighting ability you have compared to the other team. And you're at the mercy of who's going to run out of speed ups and resources first if this becomes a war of attrition. I think being able to put in work in multiple areas of the map simply gives you more options. It gives you more ways to win, more ways to put pressure on the enemy. If it's all about this one giant scrum, you do get very good KP, but it's almost just like whichever team is stronger is the team that wins. There's something to be said for a little bit more nuance, a little bit more flex, and the way in which you can use that flex to open up other areas of opportunity. But from a footage perspective, from a content perspective, you love the big open field fights with all the particle effects flying, big red numbers, tiny white numbers, overlaid on top of these marches. Aggressive push here, 541 KT. This fight has gone back and forth so many times. It looks like they're collapsing the range line of Water Camp. You see a Margaret getting heavily pressured on the top, a Gonzalo at very low health. The range line of Water Camp now being breached here around this holy site. But it looks like it's probably going to be too little too late. That flag is done. That flag is finished. Water Camp got all their flags down in this area after destroying a 41 KT flag that was under construction. Really solid turnaround by Water Camp here in the last 20 minutes or so. And this zone once again looking very, very close. I mean, we have to start thinking about the possibility that the much hyped battle between 61 and 41, we have to start wondering whether that's even going to happen. Because if this fight is going to be as intense as it is right now, I mean, right now, these teams are burning through so many resources and speed ups every few minutes. They are burning through so many speed ups and resources in a fight this big. You see a steady stream of sad faces from both teams, right? So if 41 gets drained in this zone, while 16 has an easy time of it in the other zone, which I don't know if they have an easy time of it. I'm just saying the camera people have decided to focus completely on this zone at this point. If 41 gets drained and 16 doesn't, then honestly, the KVK is over at that point. The KVK is over before they even fought. And I did get confirmation that most Chinese kingdoms only have one main alliance. So the Chinese server is very similar to the international server in terms of kingdom composition, with just the one alliance kingdoms. So pretty interesting. Pretty interesting that, you know, a totally different server with, you know, different population numbers and, you know, a different culture, a different gaming culture. Interesting that they have ended up in the same place as the international server has, with one alliance kingdoms. I mean, obviously the population of international servers is much bigger. I mean, it's one country versus the rest of the world in terms of available player pool. But after 6 years of playing this game and kingdoms being much larger in the past, very interesting that both servers have landed on a point of one alliance kingdoms. I think it's good in the sense that, you know, obviously the developers are paying attention to both servers. So, you know, they can basically come up with solutions for both servers. And, you know, those solutions can be rolled out equally effectively in both cases. I mean, obviously we have the domain system now on the international server. I do think the domain system has been really good. We've been able to keep players in our kingdom who are a bit more casual. We were able to bring a pretty lean group to our current KVK without having to like zero people or kick up a bunch of people out of the kingdom. I think that has all worked out quite well. Both teams at this point, they're trying to establish enough open field control to actually rally a flag. It's not really happening, right? Like, maybe in some of these other places we're seeing rallies. Obviously there's, okay, so there is fighting over here. Fairly even-ish fighting in some of these other places. Let's see if any of these are burning, any of these flags are burning. Really good teleport space here for water camp. You see in this area here, the teleport space is fantastic. Maybe they're looking at the river and seeing whether there aren't that many bridges along that river. I'm kind of noticing the same thing, right? But yeah, a bunch of other touch points where we are seeing some fighting. But it looked like the numbers were pretty even. We haven't seen whether the flags are burning at some of these other spots or not, but looks like a very stable state has been achieved roughly 2 hours into the zone. Oh, actually, we're 2.5 hours into the zone now. Right? Yeah, time is flying. Time is flying on this stream at this point. We have reached a pretty stable spot. And, you know, we're going to see which group is stronger, basically. I'm kind of reflecting on my own performance yesterday, because I'm sort of thinking about what matters in a spot like this. I think vibes are very important at this point. You just want people to stay active. You want, you know, you want the numbers online to just stay high. I think the pilot network starts to not now, but like this is the kind of situation where a pilot network matters, because it feels like they're going to be at these points for a very long time. It's going to be hard to burn flags in the current map state. And I think if you're water camp in a spot like this, the morale advantage that water camp has right now is that their job is very simple, and they're achieving it all the time. Like, as we speak, water camp is achieving all of their goals in this zone, which their goal is to drain 41. They want to drain 41 while not taking really bad trades to do it. They can't destroy themselves while draining the enemy, because they also have to fight in future zones. But if they can drain 41, then their side has a great chance to win this war. So you can motivate your players pretty easily here if you're the water camp. You say to them, listen, everything is going very well for us. Let's just keep doing it. Whereas if you are 41 here and you're the lead kingdom on your team and your allies are losing the other zone, then you're going to need to win this zone. And that puts a lot of pressure on you. That puts like nonstop pressure on you of, are we doing enough? Are we accomplishing enough right now? All we're doing is we're standing in the field. We're not burning them. We're not taking territory. We're not really even getting all that great of trades. So are we doing enough right now? That's what 41 is asking themselves all the time on voice chat, either out loud or in their own minds. They're asking themselves, are we doing enough? Whereas Water Camp is saying to each other and to themselves, we're doing everything that we need to do right now. This is everything they need to do. They are wearing down the main opposition. And they're doing it in a pretty even way, right? Really tight ball here. Look at how tight this Water Camp ball here is. Two different kingdoms, but look at how tight they are staying together here. There are no flanks. Neither of these teams are flanking, right? You don't have any wing players here in this central scrum. You have a different scrum up top, but look at how tight they are staying here. Both teams, or both groups. I really like how tight this ball is right now. And it looks to me like red is probably going to take an advantage here over the next couple of minutes. Their ball just looked a little bit bigger, a little bit tighter, and it looked like Water was more worn out. But look at Water up here. Or not Water, I'm sorry. Earth Camp up here, 41. Aggressing on this flag. A Zoog rally. A Zoog rally. Okay, we are seeing some different stuff here on the Chinese server. Zoog Asher rally. A bit of anti-swarm with that Zoog AoE. But, you know, with how strong Henry is, you've got to consider Henry in that mix. But what you also see sometimes is you'll see like an Asher Zoog rally, right? You see Asher is the primary, Zoog is the secondary. The Chinese here are using the Zoog as the primary. Very interesting. Very interesting. Not something you ever see on the international server. That Zoog primary with rallies. If I were an Archer player, I could tell you what the difference is between a Zoog primary and Asher primary, but I genuinely don't know. And now the Swarm. Now the Swarm on this Gorgo. There have not been a lot of burns so far in this war, but we might see one soon here. So 41 does seem to be making a bit of progress elsewhere on the map. That puts this fight here in a different context. And look at how just we stepped away for 2 or 3 minutes, but the contour of this open field fight has completely changed. It was a very tight ball a few minutes ago, and now this fight has fanned out to basically two parallel lines between these two opposing forces. And everybody has a bit of surface area on which to fight. You see now you see more dancing back and forth because it's less about staying in that tight ball. When you stay in the tight ball, you really want to condense with your teammates, and so you can't dance so much. But now, as everything spreads out a little bit, this is a more familiar fight for a lot of international players. We do start to see more dancing, more back and forthing. Another thing about the fighting in general here is we are seeing a lot of dancing, right? There has been a lot of discussion about, do you dance back and forth, or do you very aggressively push into the enemy, no backing up, fight until you sad face? We're not seeing that sort of play here, are we? We are not seeing that go forward, no going back type of attack that we see from... I think we see that from GT quite a bit. I've seen it from some smaller A kingdoms. A Russian kingdom, 2056, did that very well back in the day. We do see some very, very, very good international kingdoms that have a Very aggressive mentality. 2268, the now defunct 2268, we also saw them being a very aggressive, go forward, no backing up type of attacking force. I have always felt that that is incredibly effective. I'm never able to get my own kingdom to do it, but I have always felt that that aggressive style is very effective. Not really seeing that from these top Chinese kingdoms here. We're seeing a lot of dancing. I would say that we are seeing a lot of dancing here, actually. And you see the fight just kind of staying where it is. And you see how important those flags were that Water Camp got up. That was a key moment, really, is destroying the turquoise flag that was under construction, building your own set of red flags, getting all that teleport space at this incredibly important spot around this holy site. And neither team opening up more teleport space at the moment. I wonder if both teams are struggling for resources to build flags. I don't think they would be struggling on crystals, but I thought maybe we would see a bit more teleport space opening up here, south of the fight here. Ranged marches pulsing. We see the pulsing of both ranged armies here. And if you see, this is the thing about the ranged, right? If your enemy has this type of ranged presence and you find yourself in a situation like this and you don't have anywhere near the ranged presence of the enemy, then they have a huge advantage. And so as much as I said earlier that like I haven't built a ranged march because I don't want to control the ranged march with my other marches, I think there might be some merit to building a ranged march even if you leave it at home 80 or 90% of the time, right? For 80 or 90% of fights, it doesn't make sense to use ranged, or it's annoying to use ranged, and so you don't bring it out. But in situations like this, where the front lines have stayed relatively steady for about 45 minutes now, I think it's very... If you're an alliance that has a bunch of ranged marches in your back pocket, I think that's actually quite useful, right? I think that's quite useful. I think that's almost worth building a ranged march. Some cheap ranged gear. I mean, you can build the cheap ranged gear for very few materials, and I think we all have those blueprints. You can build a Margaret to 5511. You can pair that Margaret with either Gonzalo or maybe one of the new ranged commanders. Obviously, there are new ranged commanders coming out as well, which presumably will buff ranged marches even more. And I mean, if ranged gets stronger than it is now, gosh, more kingdoms have to think about it, you know? As an officer in my kingdom, we have to think about ranged more if they're gonna buff it, you know? But I will be right back. Give me one moment. So yeah, that flag was burning there. So it does look like 41 did get a burn on one of those flags from water camp. So they are making a bit of progress elsewhere on the map. But, you know, it's pretty even so far. Pretty even so far. Pretty good studio presence here from the Chinese broadcasters. Very cool real life desk there, and then a well integrated green screen behind them. This ends up being a very professional looking production. I'm, you know, doing my best to match it with my homespun version of this coverage. You know, we do what we can. We do what we can. Worth noting, plenty of female broadcasters, plenty of female content creators in the Chinese server community. We've had a couple over the years in the ROK community. Obviously, Only Farmer, an active content creator these days. Devil Knights, back in the day, was another female content creator. But, you know, one of the really nice things about ROK is that there's a larger female percentage of the player base, right? I mean, in our kingdom, I would say, I don't know, 10 to 15% of the player base are women. In the ARC team that I play in every couple weeks, 20 to 25% of the players are women. So, and certainly ROK is the type of game where lots of different skill sets are useful to having success in this game. And so we've seen many female players have great success in Rise of Kingdoms. I mean, the king of 770 for a very long time was captain, and she's, you know, a woman in Korea. So yeah, really good to see, you know, female content creators being represented on this Chinese broadcast, because, you know, women do play like a very big role in this game. I think ROK has been better in that sense than most of the games I've played in my life. And obviously, you know, plenty of female commanders in the game as well. Although I will say at the moment it seems like the men are dominating a bit as far as meta goes. I mean, if we want to talk about the most impactful commanders in the game and say whether they're men or women, we've got what? We've got CY, man. Scipio Emilianus, man. Lucci, man. Gorgo, woman, obviously. Asher, man. Zug, man. It's really the Heraclius. I don't know if I said Heraclius, but Heraclius, a man. It's really, you know, Joan. It's Joan and Gorgo these days who are holding things down for the women. The last couple female commanders, Eleanor and Shajar. Oofa. Oofa. Talk about being made obsolete as soon as you plant your feet on the ground. Eleanor and Shajar just getting the bad end of the deal on recent commander releases. wonder if I can open up the chat. I'm just going to open up the Chinese chat real quick just to see what it's like. So here we go. Here's the Chinese chat of this. Doesn't look all that fast. I don't know if this is like Chinese YouTube or what. I don't want to say what the link is that I have, but I imagine this is like some big Chinese streaming site. Because it looks like they've got some sort of like, they got like these little games or little gifts that you can either receive or give away. They got a donation thing at the top in the form of points. Obviously, on the Chinese server, players can also spectate a KVK like this in the game itself. But it's nice to see not only how the Chinese server does things, but also just to observe the ever-evolving state of Rise of Kingdoms. Nowadays, in ROK, you see many, many boats on the front line. The boat castle skin, which applies to all troop types, quickly becoming a favorite of the frontline set. Ranged now becoming a much bigger part of what we see. You still don't see ranged in the smaller KVKs much, but I think the writing is on the wall here in terms of what smaller kingdoms have to start doing. I don't think the two biggest Chinese kingdoms in the game would have this much ranged if they thought it was a bad idea. And I think in a fight like this, it's just undoubtedly the case that the ranged are getting incredibly good trades. We also continue to evolve with new maps. The King of Britain map is a brand new map. I think it will be pretty popular because I think people like these Zone 5s and the importance of Zone 5s. I think the stratagems need to be rolled out differently. I will say that, you know, basically I was very busy early on in this KVK. I didn't notice that this home gang event was happening. I saw the icon on my KVK screen, but I just never clicked on it. I also never clicked on the stratagem shop to realize that I was going to have to buy stratagems. And basically, there was a 2-day sign-up period for this home gang event where you sign up to do this Sunset Canyon-like event, you form a team of 3 people, you fight against other teams, and then you duel other teams and earn stratagem points every day. I did not sign up in time. I did not sign up during that 2-day window. And that basically meant that I had very, very few stratagem points for this first fight. And that was pretty frustrating, honestly. That was honestly pretty frustrating. Because, you know, I'm spending a bunch of money on Crystal Tech. I've spent like 350 bucks so far in this KVK on Crystal Tech. And yet I was very much behind on stratagems. My opponents had more stratagems than I had just because I forgot to do this brand new event where there was only a 2-day window to sign up. Now, maybe that's not that big of a deal. Maybe they can leave it as is and it'll work out. But like not being able to buy many stratagems was frustrating for sure. I think maybe the burrs are the thing that maybe needs to be fixed more, because I feel like you should have to have territory touching the burrs. And make it a little bit more gradual to control the burr. Like maybe control of the burr can shift from one side to another over time, because we won the zone. Like we're winning our zone 5, but because the enemy inhabited both of the burrs before we did, we can't use those burrs for about 3 days. So I think they maybe need to tweak a few things about the stratagem points on this map, but it basically feels like a very good map. Yeah, it feels like a good map actually so far. It's not super hardcore. It's like in the middle. I think it's a bit like a heroic anthem type of map in terms of the pacing. You do zone 5 and then the zone 7 fight, which I believe is a pass battle, is several days later. So it's kind of maybe it's like a heroic anthem 2.0 type of map where you're adding a few things, you're adding stratagems, you're getting rid of bastion skills, you're adding holy sites that give better buffs. And not too much else is different that I can think of at the moment, but it's part of this evolving nature of the game. They keep it fresh to a pretty decent degree. You know, for me, the challenge of the game at the moment is just how demanding it is, how much time it takes, how much pressure there is during a war, how tough the competition is. You know, I was in kind of a bad mood for a while yesterday because I was just tired and the enemy had a lot of open field and we were kind of like on the back foot. But then the enemy went to bed, you know, like they just completely went to bed. They all fought together and then they all went offline together. And then we just burned everything and took over the zone. So, I mean, I almost have like a very different perspective on it now than I did 12 hours ago. But at the same time, I want to be honest to the feelings I had early on in the zone fight yesterday, which is just like, oh crap, here we go again. You know, it's just like the same thing again. The same guy from GTA walking down the alley, about to go through things one more time. But, you know, it's life on the edge. Rise of Kingdoms is life on the edge, always. You have to put a lot of effort in. Losing feels a lot different than winning. A lot different than winning. But when you get to the other side of that and you get a win, at least a temporary win, I don't know, everything's good again, right? Everything feels good. And the effort you put in feels worth it. But you don't get those moments all that often. And to get there, you have to go through what these kingdoms here are going through right now, which is non-stop fighting. Non-stop fighting. You know, when you're in an open field fight like this, it's like, what do? You fight, you sad face or retreat, and then you have to pull your marches right back out and fight again. Just do it over and over and over again. I played yesterday I think I played for 12 hours straight yesterday, and then went to bed early to do this stream, and I honestly felt bad. I felt bad that I was logging off after only playing for 12 hours. Our leader, our R5 Adinavo, has probably been up for 24 hours straight at this point. He pretty much does that every single pass open, and he stays up for 24 hours straight, leading us the whole time. You know, it takes a special person like that to keep a kingdom going for so long. And it's fortunate that there are a lot of those people in this game. But let's not pretend for even a moment that it is not. These wars are very demanding. They are very, very demanding. And so I like middle maps like King of Britain or Heroic Anthem, where it's not too intense, right? Like, Strife of the Eight is so intense. Siege of Orleans is so intense. Sword of Stratagems is quite intense as well. Heroic Anthem, a little more chill. King of Britain, probably a bit more chill because, again, there's like a very long break between this fight and the next fight. And I like the middle area of the domain system as well, where you can have a smaller kingdom. You know, if you want to, you can just bring a smaller group to the next KVK and potentially get matched up against some smaller kingdoms rather than these Imperium level juggernauts. You know, as with everything in life, it's all a balance. It's all a balance, trying to find a balance between playing hard and doing other stuff, between being competitive and having a good time, a balance between being liked and being unliked, a balance between, you know, having good vibes and bad vibes. It's all a balance, and you just grind through that. Look, more ranged marches over here. So not even only at the holy site. They probably have like 40 or 50 ranged marches. The water camp probably has 40 or 50 ranged marches right now. So, you know, that's the grind too, right? It's not even just the fighting during the KVK. It's a grind to prepare yourself correctly for the KVK. You have to pick the right commanders to build. You have to do forts in the off season. You have to do bastion quests to get your crystal tech up. You have to prepare as a team with the right use of your gold heads. And if a team comes to a KVK with way more ranged marches than you do, then it might be said that they have simply prepared better than you prepared. And maybe they'll win because of that. It's hard to say. I'm not saying for sure that ranged is OP. But there's a reason the biggest kingdoms in the game are doing it. '41 now pushing back. Getting a bit of momentum here. But it looks like they may have pushed a little too far here, actually. You can see that their marches are fairly low health. A lot of lower health marches in blue here. A lot of recently refreshed marches for red. So they might have overextended here a bit. Not sure. This is also why you anchor rallies. You have rallies set on some of these flags. You anchor them, and then when you do get the open field control, you release that anchor, let the rally go, and, you know, maybe you get a burn. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you at least give yourself the best possible chance at it. At this point, the fighting is starting to extend out. As much as the holy site is important, these other flags, these other touch points are also important. Rally again now on this Gorgo. This is being contested a bit more, but you do see that 41 has the field. They're swarming the Gorgo with this rally. Their swarmers are safe, and their rally is safe. This is enough open field control that they will be able to burn this flag. The question, of course, is what is the trade? Is the Gorgo getting a good trade against these swarmers? It looks like the Gorgo is getting a very good trade. These swarmers are very low yellow health at this point. The Wallace swarm breaking off. This Nevsky will likely break off soon. Yep, all those swarmers breaking off. Looks like they might have swarmed down the rally. I don't see the rally anymore. No, the rally's still going. Rally is still going, but the swarmers broke off. There might be, yeah, it looks like new players are swarming. You can see it on the right-hand screen. You can see a Nevsky swarming it. And a Zug. The footage now shifting over here to the right side. Again, the Nevsky getting low as well. The Zug breaking off as soon as it turns yellow. The Nevsky still committing. Now this garrison is very, very low. Rally is still up. The Zug hanging in there. Zug doing some good AoE to the field marches around it. So the trade is always... The trade doesn't happen in one place. The trade in these fights happens in many ways. It happens to the garrison. It happens to the rally. It happens to the swarmers. It happens to the marches trying to reinforce and getting wrecked by AoE. And it happens to the open field. The trade can be different on those different metrics. But, I mean, generally speaking, when a flag gets heavily swarmed and the swarmers break off and the flag doesn't burn, that's usually a very good trade for the defense. That's generally a very, very good trade for the defense. So, yeah, good defense there. They got the field. They didn't have the field when the fight happened, but once the fight's over, they're not taking the field. That's a good thing to do on the defense. You can sometimes turn this thing, you know, after a rally, after a successful defense, you can oftentimes turn the field because the enemy is just sort of naturally going backwards. And then what you want to do is you want your field to stay out there, right? You got an easy win as the enemy walked away, but now you want your field to stay out there. This is the thing I always struggle to figure out how to do well is how do I keep people out in the field? Because it doesn't... saying stay in the field doesn't seem to be enough, you know? Because one of the dynamics that, you know, is happening more and more in ROK. It has always happened. This has always happened, but I just see it more and more, is that everyone goes to the easy fight. Like, people just go to the easier fight. If there's a tough opponent and an easy opponent, they're all going to go and burn the easy opponent. If you're in your uptime, everyone's going to be online, everybody's going to fight. If you're in your downtime, people just disappear. If you're winning the open field, you stay out there. If you're getting wrecked in the open field, all of a sudden, nobody shows up. It's like, it's crazy how often these things will shift back and forth from, you know, 1 minute to another, but you have to like maintain that edge where people want to keep playing. And the great wars are the ones where neither team has an edge. And both teams have to it's both a struggle and easy to stay out on the field because it's so close. Both teams are having a moderate amount of success, but not a ton of it. Those are the special fights when things are very, very even. And I do think today we have gotten to see one of those fights where in this zone, these two camps look very, very even. I mean, some flags have been burned, but no flags are like on free burn. The front lines have barely moved. It looks like here maybe there's nothing burning. Right? It doesn't look like there's anything burning here. So just a really fair fight between these two camps. I've really enjoyed casting this. I hope everybody watching has enjoyed it as well. Do throw a like on this stream. Subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. This war will rage on. Also leave a comment if you enjoy this coverage, if this is something you want to see more of. I would love to get more opportunities to do this kind of stuff. I think this might have not have been like the highest viewed stream that I've ever done, but I would like to do more of this in the future. I enjoy covering KVKs, so I do really appreciate Lilith for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate you all for hanging out. Thank you to all the Chinese camps in this KBK for making it a really good show today. And I will see you all on the flip side.